At KBLA Talk 1580, we aim to foster enlightening, sustainable, restorative dialogue, and we welcome unapologetically progressive viewpoints that empower fellow citizens. We are now accepting submissions for KBLA Talk 1580 guest editorials like this one.
For the KBLA Talk 1580 guest editorial, I'm Martin Gordon, chair of the Pasadena Community Coalition. Recently, I listened to a Tavis Smiley show conversation with James Farr. James said something that caught me off guard. Black out the Dina is gone. My community is being murdered. I said murdered.
All you have to do is go to our website homepage at KBLA1580.com and click on the icon that says KBLA Guest Editorials to learn more about our editorial standards and content submission guidelines. As long as the topic aligns with our mission, we are happy to review your submission and consider it for broadcast. We can't make any promises, but we want to amplify progressive perspectives that are community-focused and solution-oriented. So, go to KBLA1580.com right now to download all the information you need about our guest editorials. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
Cowboy Carter, time to strike a match and light up this juke joint.
One by one, you hang them high. Your hands are steady and you sleep at night. How did you turn your heart to stone? I don't want them back, but I can't let go. Hangman, answer me now. You owe me a debt, you stole him from me. I hated you once, I envy you now. Just tell me how, tell me how.
Oh, she got that water. Hangman got that water. Don't act like you don't know. Giddy up, giddy up.
This is the Black Pack on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm your host, Adrianne Shropshire, and I am so glad to be joined right now by Valencia Richardson, the counsel for voting rights at the Campaign Legal Center, both for being here to discuss the 60th anniversary of the Voting Rights Act and where we are, but also for bringing us the great suggestion of bringing Beyonce into the conversation. Thank you, Valencia, for that. I appreciate, anytime I get to listen to Tyrant. So thank you for joining. And I wanted to just, before we get into, sort of the reality, right, of where we are right now in terms of voting rights and political representation. Next Wednesday marks the 60th anniversary of the Voting Rights Act of 1965. And so before we get into the not so great conversation about what is happening, I was hoping that you could just give our listeners, talk to our listeners a little bit about the importance of the Voting Rights Act. When in the moment where it sort of came into being, what was the importance of that, and what did it mean in terms of kind of fulfilling the promise of full citizenship?
Absolutely, and thank you for having me on, and thank you for giving me space to introduce Beyonce into this conversation.
Of course.
And I'll start, I think when the Voting Rights Act of 1965 was passed, it marked a watershed moment of about 150 years of, depending on how you go far back, 150 years of fight. After the Civil War, the 14th and 15th Amendments were meant to promise the franchise to formerly enslaved people and black voters and people of color in this country, and that promise was not fully fulfilled. And so you have to go through Jim Crow, you have to go through the Civil Rights Movement and get to 1965 where we finally get the fulfillment of the promise of the 15th Amendment. And that is, I think marked just a watershed moment for this country, moving it for the first time really towards a truly multiracial democracy. And so it can't be understated. I think a lot of people agree with me that the Voting Rights Act of 1965 was the greatest piece of legislation Congress has ever passed, and that marks its importance.
Yeah, I think that we have. So I feel like our democracy works best when we don't have to think about the things that have been done, right? Like that they're just there, right? They're there. That you can rely on them. Equal access to the ballot box would be one that would be great if it wasn't a thing that we had to constantly come back around and fight for. But nonetheless, here we are. And I think that when we have to take the reason why I ask you to start by just talking about the importance of the VRA is because we should celebrate it, right? Like just precisely for the thing that you just said, right?
Absolutely. And when I think about voting rights, I think and what the Voting Rights Act is supposed to fulfill, we're always having to attack voter suppression, so sometimes we don't think about what we're looking forward to. And it's just what you said. It's a democracy where I can wake up and I can go to my polling place if I want to, or I can send in my ballot if I want to, and not have to worry about if I'm fairly represented or if my vote if I have the equal opportunity to cast my ballot compared to other people. And that's what the Voting Rights Act was, looking back to past wrongs, but also looking forward to a future where all of us could participate in a democracy and feel and feel like our voices mattered and heard, because they do.
Yeah, I appreciate that, because I think the beauty and brilliance, right, of it was that it did suggest something about what the future could be, right, or what the future ought to be. Okay, so but when we're gonna continue this conversation because the future didn't quite go that way, right? So here we are in the future. And so when we come forward, I want to talk about where we are now and what all of this means when we think about both the redistricting threats that we're seeing around the country, as well as the ongoing kind of voter suppression that we're seeing in our community and in others. So this is KBLA Talk 15 with us. Stay with us. We'll be back with Valencia Richardson.
You're part of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire on KBLA Talk 1580.
Yeah. At KBLA Talk 1580, we're proud to be celebrating 4 years on the air, but we know we could not have made it this far without you. We work hard every single day to curate conversations that will enlighten, encourage, and empower you. So, from all of us at KBLA Talk 1580, a big thank you for your love and support.
You don't know how much you mean to me.
And by the way, if your smartphone did not update automatically, be sure to download our brand new KBLA 1580 app. We think you'll love all the new features, including new ways to send us photos and video in real time, whenever news breaks, while we're on the air. It's a new dawn, a new day for KBLA Talk 1580, and we're glad you're on this journey with us.
You never turned away, you were right there. Thank you, thank you.
Exciting news, ladies! Always Discreet Boutique Bladder Leak underwear are available in black and printed design. Protect yourself with style. These fit and feel just like real underwear, and they give you up to 0 leaks, 0 odor. Designed for all shapes and sizes, they give you the confidence to be fully yourself. Don't let bladder leaks hold you back. Buy Always Discreet Boutique Bladder Leak underwear now.
Our daughter Jessie loves playing detective.
A clue.
But since we discovered she has sensitive skin, we've been playing detective too.
We thought the problem was our puppy.
but it was actually our old detergent.
Aha.
So we switched to Tide Free and Gentle. Tide Free and Gentle provides an excellent Tide clean, and it doesn't leave behind irritating residues like dyes or perfumes, so it's gentle on your skin.
Case closed.
If it's got to be clean, it's got to be Tide Free and Gentle.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. The Los Angeles Regional Food Bank is on a mission to fight hunger and provide nutritious food to those in need across our community. They partner with federal, state, and local programs advocating for better policies and funding for critical hunger relief programs like Cal Fresh, the Emergency Food Assistance Program, and the Child and Adult Care Food Program. The food bank works with coalitions and local representatives to make sure hunger is addressed in every district of LA County. They also run nutrition education campaigns, raise hunger awareness, and source nutritious food for distribution, all while supporting regulations that allow food pantries to operate safely. Want to help? Visit lafoodbank.org or call 323-234-3030 to volunteer or find a food bank near you. Together, we can ensure that no one goes hungry in Los Angeles County. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Let's get back to more of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire right now on KBLA Talk 1580.
We are continuing our conversation with Valencia Richardson, the legal counsel for voting rights at the Campaign Legal Center. And we're having this conversation as we approach the 60th anniversary of the Voting Rights Act next week. And so, Valencia, I want to sort of jump in because we talked last week on the show about this redistricting showdown, right? That sort of emerged last week and it emerged last week, actually. I think Trump said, I will say for the second time, this showtime has no meaning, so I'm not even sure when I say weeks or months ago. Like, I'm not sure which it is.
I think it's weeks.
Yeah, I think it's weeks, yes. When he was like, Texas, I want you to redistrict and create more Republican seats. And the Texas governor said, yes, sir. And then Texas just put out new maps the other day. Essentially eliminating five Democratic seats, with other states saying that they might do the same thing, right? With Missouri saying that they might do the same thing, with Florida, of course, right, chiming in and saying we might do the same thing, and there's some reaction from Democratic governors as well. We have that, right, on the one hand, and we also have this case that I'm hoping I feel like there's some things that we just need to do whole shows on, right, which is this Eighth Circuit case, right, involving Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, about the ability of private individuals to bring suit, right, to enforce voting rights. So I think it just feels like fair representation, right? And not just fair representation, but also the ability to ensure that the thing that we were saying earlier about it would be great if we didn't have to think about this thing because it's just a thing that happens, right? We all have, the right to vote, right? And that's just a given. We don't have to think about it. But we've had to fight every step of the way since, right, 1965. So it feels like we both have the sort of, erosion of fair representation for us, our ability to choose who we want to represent us, and also just fighting to be able to make sure that we have access to the ballot. And that really feels like the state of play right now.
Yes. And it honestly, it feels like the Voting Rights Act is under attack because in many ways, the promises of the Voting Rights Act are under attack. Mm-hmm. The Eighth Circuit decision you mentioned actually follows another Eighth Circuit decision, both of which undermine the ability of private plaintiffs to sue in those within the Eighth Circuit. So those states within the Eighth Circuit, and then the Texas redistricting, which I think, to be clear, is intentional racial discrimination. Dismantling districts because they have Black and Hispanic populations. It is what Texas is engaging in is racial discrimination. Right. in congressional redistricting, which, would have before before the dismantling of preclearance in 2013 would have been subject to some level of federal oversight. And so all of this is connected, right? Yeah. But all of this is connected, and it's not a coincidence that all of these strategies to dismantle the Voting Rights Act, death by 1,000 cuts, is happening at the same time. I think for me, it reignites the sort of imperative to enact to renew the Voting Rights Act for the John Lewis Voting Rights Bill,
which just got reintroduced. Yeah, you're saying the same thing.
And I think it's the moral imperative to pass the John Lewis Bill. It has never been clear to me. It was very clear to me already after Shelby County, but at this point, it's just the moral imperative is just very clear, and what's at stake, both at the Ed Circuit and with Texas redistricting and other states potentially signaling doing the same thing is the ability for minority voters in particular to have fair representation and to vindicate their rights in federal court. Absolutely. And it is a reflection of how I think looking at it, I suppose glass half full, I think it's the pushback is also a reflection of, how much power building the Voting Rights Act did for minority voters. The explosion of black representation after the passage of the Voting Rights Act, the ability of black and brown voters to cast their ballots fairly and freely, and for us to be able to feel like we have representation for the first time, really, in the history of this country. The power of the Voting Rights Act of 1965, almost receiving sort of that intense backlash because it's so clear how remarkable that piece of legislation is and was.
Right. I mean, it mirrors the explosion of black representation after the period of enslavement, right? Reconstruction,
exactly,
right, where we saw an explosion of black representation and black voting, and then there was intense backlash, right? And then we see again,
and then you have Jim Crow, right?
Right, exactly. And then we have 1965, an explosion of black representation, an explosion of black voting, all the way up into the election of the first black president, and for the first time in history, black turnout exceeds white turnout, and then we have the backlash, right? Which is, sort of where we are right now. And one of the things that, is of concern, I think, for me, and I know for many others, and I think for you too, is, sort of what impact, what is the impact, what are the implications for not just future generations, but just younger people in general, right? When folks see this attack on our ability to have equal access to voting. And I know that you've written a book around youth voting. And so I just wonder your thoughts on, what do you think is necessary as, we're sort of battling through this moment to make sure that we have not just, representation and equal access, that we are actually expanding participation in our democracy. What are your thoughts on what do we need to do to engage younger folks to help people not get discouraged, right? To sort of find their place in this moment, this sort of broader civic engagement, but also to continue to appreciate the right to vote, right? In a moment where it is under attack.
Absolutely. I actually, as you alluded, I think deeply about this problem, and I am, and think deeply about what this means for future generations, and how do we, show them that, what I believe is that I'm a big MLK girl, and I do believe the arc of moral justice bends, bends the right direction. And how do we show show the generations coming behind us that? I think a demonstration that people, like me, who are and others, that we are willing to embrace creative solutions. We're willing to, stand up and speak truth to power. At the Campaign Legal Center, we've been heavily litigating the threats to democracy against the Trump administration's attacks on democracy. And I think, showing rather than telling young people that there are creative solutions being implemented, embracing new ideas. And then also, I think very important, I think I said this at the beginning, is and while we're fighting, presenting a vision of what we want the future to be. It's really easy for us to, fall back on, we're constantly having to fight, but we need to present actively a vision of what a true multiracial democracy looks like, and what true political participation and electoral participation looks like, so that young people have something to aspire to. And so, for me, that looks like a Voting Rights Act that while currently under attack, is strengthened through congressional legislation and is and provides new tools to both vindicate people's rights, but also protect people from discrimination. And it looks like increasing voter registration and making it so that if particularly young people have fair and equitable access to voter registration. And it looks like a vision where, as we've I think the through line of this conversation, where you don't have to think about it because you are ensured that your rights are being protected and that you're and being valued equally with other people. And so I think we have to present. It's really, in the 60th anniversary of the Voting Rights Act, provides us an opportunity to present a future, an affirmative vision of what we want our democracy to look like.
I think that's so important, because I think that there's particularly this, the sort of what is the aspirational vision, right, that we have, because it's sometimes I think when we talk about, fighting for any of the things that we know that are important to fight for, it can feel like we're asking folks to fight for status quo, right? In a moment where status quo actually isn't good enough. And I think that that's particularly challenging I think it's challenging for everybody, but I think it's probably, particularly challenging for young folks who are, going back to your point about, your points about why the Voting Rights Act was so critical and so important in 1965, because what it suggested, right, about what the future could be. And that feels like, asking folks to fight for, things to stay the way they are, right? Or just to get back, right, to where they were, which was not necessarily that great. Just feels like that we have to offer more than that, I guess, is what I'm saying.
Absolutely. I don't want the status quo. I want better. And I think that we should just be presenting what better looks like. If anything, if we want to think about the ways that the current moment can teach us that the weaknesses that exist, that we could be plugging those holes through better policies and through better and through power building and organizing, because all of these terrible things that are happening and the attempts to undermine the Voting Rights Act are showing us, sort of where we can build back, like a vision of a better vision of democracy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that I think that the reason why I asked specifically about young people is I talked earlier in the show about a poll that Black Pac recently released, and one of the things that I continue to find very interesting in our polling is the sort of convergence, I think that's the right word, of the opinions of Gen Z voters, Black Gen Z voters, and the legacy generation voters. And so it is fascinating, right? So because what we see is how they view what's happening, the intensity, right, with which they view what is happening aligns in many ways. And it is fascinating because that is the generation, right, that had to fight for the Voting Rights Act, et cetera, and the generation that is potentially going to have to fight for the new stuff, right? And so for that new vision. And so it is really fascinating to see the ways that the opinions and the intensity of the opinions around what's happening in the country are kind of lining up. I'm sure you see that in your working conversations.
I do feel hope. I often feel despair, frankly, but I do feel hope in the intense passion that people feel about wanting a better future. And I think that you're totally right that intensity is what motivated the creative solutions, the marches, the protests that gave us the policymaking, the litigation that gave us what was eventually the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and then later the Voting Rights Act of 1965. And so we could be on the precipice again. Yeah. And I try to think about it that way, too.
That's a great way to think about it. And I appreciate you for leaving us with that, because I think that we are on the precipice. And if we're not, we need to get on it very quickly. But I appreciate you for joining us and for talking with us about both why the Voting Rights Act was seminal, right, and why we need to continue to make sure that we're fighting for everything, that all the principles that it sort of represented. So Valencia Richardson, legal counsel for Voting Rights at the Campaign Legal Center. Appreciate you for joining us. When we come forward, we're going to be joined by organizer and movement strategist Ashley Lee Woodard Henderson to continue this conversation about where we are with voting rights. Stay with us.
More of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire on KBLA Talk 1580 when we come forward.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. Black New York City Mayor Eric Adams is vetoing a city council bill that would decriminalize illegal street vending.
It's all about votes, that's all. I think sometimes that's to get votes.
New Yorkers have had mixed reactions, with some supporting the move and others worried about street overcrowding. Shannon Sharp and Chad Ochocinco-Johnson are being sued for $20 million over false claims made on their Nightcap podcast. Jimbalina Tillman, who attended an Usher concert, says they wrongly claimed she was married and divorcing. Tillman, who is single, says the false story damaged her reputation, and despite reaching out, the claims were never corrected. And Maryland is launching Longevity Ready Maryland to support its growing senior population. Black Governor Wes Moore says the plan brings together state agencies, communities, and private partners to build a stronger care system as federal aid declines. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
It's tough in Encino. A wreck on the 101 northbound past Balboa is blocking the right lane. That drive over all delays out of Hollywood, getting away from just about Santa Monica Boulevard. And also in Brea, a wreck is wrapped up on the 57 southbound before Imperial Highway. All lanes are open. Delays picking up away from Lambert. Let's also look at Irvine. This is the drive on the 5 northbound. Delays from the 133 freeway, heavy and slow ahead all the way to Beach Boulevard. Actually, all the way to Harbor in Anaheim.
Spending 2 hours staring at the back of someone's bumper isn't the best way to end your day. So Jack in the Box is giving you a bonus with their new Bonus Jack Combo. Fries, a drink, and a burger with your choice of 1, 2, or 3 patties, starting at just $4.49. Get so much more.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Pro Football Hall of Fame is tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Pacific Time. If you've never taken the time to watch the ceremony, you really should tune in tomorrow. Tight end Antonio Gates, who played all 16 of his NFL seasons with the Chargers, is one of the Hall of Fame inductees. He's the first NFL player to be inducted into the Hall of Fame who did not play college football. Gates played basketball at Kent State University. He led Kent State to the Elite Eight in the 2002 NCAA tournament. Gates was not drafted by any NBA teams. No NFL team drafted him. The Chargers took a chance on Gates in 2003 and signed him as a rookie free agent. Today, Gates' 116 touchdown catches is the most by a tight end in NFL history. Gates also is the Chargers' all-time leader with 955 catches and 11,841 receiving yards. Not bad for a guy who really wanted to play in the NBA. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Give people what they want.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we aim to foster enlightening, sustainable, restorative dialogue, and we welcome unapologetically progressive viewpoints that empower fellow citizens. We are now accepting submissions for KBLA Talk 1580 guest editorials like this one.
For the KBLA Talk 1580 guest editorial, I'm Martin Gordon, chair of the Pasadena Community Coalition. Recently, I listened to a Tavis Smiley Show conversation with James Farr. James said something that caught me off guard. Black Altadena is gone. My community is being murdered. I said murdered.
All you have to do is go to our website homepage at KBLA1580.com and click on the icon that says KBLA Guest Editorials to learn more about our editorial standards and content submission guidelines. As long as the topic aligns with our mission, we are happy to review your submission and consider it for broadcast. We can't make any promises, but we want to amplify progressive perspectives that are community-focused and solution-oriented. So, go to KBLA1580.com right now to download all the information you need about our guest editorials. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
Some things can steal your sunshine.
Ugh, I just got my hair done.
Sorry, the cooler's broken. Anyone see my flip-flops? Anyone?
But COVID-19 can steal a lot more.
I just took a COVID test. Ugh.
Prescription medications for COVID exist. If you test positive this summer, ask your doctor if they're right for you. Visit PfizerForAll.com/COVID-19 to learn more. Sponsored by Pfizer.
There's one question every couple needs to answer. What if something happens to us? Kids, a house, a life you've built, but no estate plan? That's a risk you don't want to take. With Trust and Will, it's fast, secure, and easy to protect what matters most. Start your plan today at trustandwill.com. Use code RADIO to save 20%. Check it off your list. One less thing to worry about. Trust and Will is an online estate planning service. See website for details.
Trust and Will.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. Worried about eviction? You have rights, and Stay Housed LA can help. Stay Housed LA is a partnership between LA County, the City of Los Angeles, and local service providers. From Lancaster to Long Beach, we're here to help you with tenant education workshops, legal clinics, free legal services for eligible tenants, and online resources about tenant protection laws. Don't face eviction alone. Call our hotline at 1-888-694-0040. That's 1-888-694-0040. Or visit stayhousedla.org. Stay Housed LA, keeping Los Angeles residents in their homes. Stay Housed LA, your rights, your home, our community. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
You're inside the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is the Black Pack, and I am Adrianne Shropshire. And if you were listening earlier, you know we were talking about the upcoming anniversary of the Voting Rights Act next week. 60 years since the Voting Rights Act. But I think we also know that the right to vote is, more than just casting a ballot. It really is about having the power to decide for ourselves and our community. And the opportunity for that kind of self-determination and co-governance with those who we elect is increasingly being stripped away from our community around the country. And this certainly, as we know, did not start. This attack on our voting rights did not start with the first or the second Trump administration. But in many ways, I think that we know that they are paving the way for sharp departures from democratic norms and norms that we previously took for granted, as we also talked about with Valencia just a bit ago. But joining us now to talk about this and much more is organizer and movement strategist Ashley Woodard Henderson. And I want to say welcome, Ashley.
Adrian, hey.
How are you?
All things considered, I'm blessed and highly favored in these turbulent times. Thanks for having me.
Well, it's good to talk to you today, and thank you for joining us. So earlier, I think you may have heard a little bit but as I was just saying, like earlier, we were talking about the legacy, right, and the impact of the Voting Rights Act of 1965. And with the anniversary coming up, it just feels like it's an important opportunity to do some reflection, but also to talk about what we need to be doing and where we need to be going. And it wasn't like the Voting Rights Act. So when we think about the moment that we're in, right, it wasn't like the Voting Rights Act came about because of some benevolence, right? There was 100 years, right, of Black folks organizing and litigating, right, in local communities around the country to make sure that that full citizenship, right, was accessible, right, to us. I wonder if you can just talk a little bit about that history, right, and the demand for Black political participation and self-determination, particularly from communities in the South.
Sure. I mean, I can't think about I'm a child of the Voting Rights Act, and I'll talk a little bit about how it's very literally impacted my life as a Black Southern voter. But I can't say this story without calling names like Fannie Lou Hamer and James Foreman, Charlie Cobb and Cortland Cox and Judith Richardson, and so many. I shouldn't even start naming names because there's so many people past who are currently still fighting for Black liberation, who are part of this story, whether they were connected to the Southern Christian Leadership Conference or the Congress of Equality or the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee or the NAACP or any number of organizations that, all can take some credit for how, a white man in the presidency came to be made a hero through the labor of Black folks by passing a law that he didn't create. Shout out to LBJ. So, we get to a place in 1965 where the Voting Rights Act is approved, but I think the real story to me is the multiple times it's had to be amended, the multiple times it's had to be extended, because it was never absolute concrete law of the land here. Right. Now, I agree. I full-throatedly agree with the sentiment that the Voting Rights Act didn't go far enough, wasn't permanent enough, did not, protect us enough. That the evidence is in the pudding of this moment where it's been fully gutted. And even though the Dems are trying for a change to at least do something symbolically looking like being in courageous leadership by trying to get a conversation about the Voting Rights Act to happen in Congress right now, the reality is that if they had listened to Black people who said that this was coming decades and decades and decades ago, then we might not be in this particular political climate. I promised I would say really quickly, why it matters to me, even in its imperfections. I'm born and raised Tennessean. Adrian, I'm a Southern supremacist. And if I had to pick the best place of the best place, I'd obviously pick the volunteer state. And in my hometown, Chattanooga, when I was 2 years into my life, I was born in 1985. In 1987, there was an organization called Concerned Citizens for Justice that was a Black liberation organization, Black-led, multiracial, left-leaning organization that was created on the heels of the murder of a man named Wadey Settles, a Black veteran who was murdered by the Chattanooga Police Department. They started an organization called Concerned Citizens for Justice, and a Black man named Lorenzo Irvin came into some leadership. Some folks might know him because he's an incredible Black activist, Black scholar, and liberationist, and he was the president. He's from Chattanooga. He was a paralegal. He was doing legal research at the time, and he realized that Black people were being disproportionately left out of the electorate in our city. We had a commission, or at-large based commission, So anybody could run if you had property in the city of Chattanooga, quite frankly, whether you live there or not.
Mm-hmm.
And so, of course, white people always won. There was only ever one black commissioner.
Right.
So they sued. Concerned Citizens for Justice sued under the Voting Rights Act. And because they won, we got 3 majority-minority districts in the city of Chattanooga that led to more black political representation in our city government.
Right.
I would be here today doing the work that I do had it not been for folks believing that even in its imperfections, the Voting Rights Act could give political power to and more opportunity for self-determination of black folks in majority white spaces. So was it the best? No. Does it continue to be a challenge? Yes. And should we throw the baby out with the bathwater? No. Our way to democracy has to include electoral justice.
Right. Well, I appreciate that history and the personal history too, because I think that sometimes the personal history gets lost, right, in the conversation about the impact, right, of the voting rights and plenty of other, pieces of legislation gets lost. Like how did this actually affect me, right? And so I appreciate you linking that, that personal story. But it also sort of leads to, the question about where we are. Right. So we talked about not just the ongoing attacks on voting rights, the voter suppression that we continue to see. We talked earlier with Valencia Richardson about the out of the blue mid-decade redistricting showdown, right? That's happening, and so it feels like this is, and Valencia said something which I think is accurate, is that it does feel like we are on the precipice of something, right? And I think whether again, like we're either gonna expand, right, go further than these policies were able to go, or we're just gonna see deeper retrenchment. And so I want to when we come forward, I want to talk about, and so what is our response to that, right? I want to talk about the lessons that we ought to be carrying forward. Just as you said, we don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, right? We carry it forward and add to it. What does that mean in terms of the organizing work that we need to do in this moment as well? So when we come forward, we'll get into that conversation with my friend Ashley Woodard Henderson. Stay with us.
You're part of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire on KBLA Talk 1580.
If you're an adult in need of an accredited high school diploma, the Los Angeles Public Library can help. You can earn one for free in as few as 5 months online with 24/7 access. You also get a personal academic coach plus special training focused on 9 in-demand industries, as well as a resume and cover letter to advance your career. Visit the website at lapl.org/diploma. That's lapl.org/diploma.
Ready to order?
Yes. We're earning unlimited 3% cash back on dining and entertainment with a Capital One Saver card, so let's just get one of everything.
Everything?
Fire everything! The Capital One Saver card is at table 27, and they're earning unlimited 3% cash back.
Yes, Chef! This is so nice.
Had a feeling you'd want 3% cash back on dessert.
Ooh, tiramisu!
Earn unlimited 3% cash back on dining and entertainment with the Capital One Saver card. Capital One, what's in your wallet?
Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com for details.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 reminds you that we keep us safe. Every girl deserves a chance to shine. That's the belief behind Forgiving for Living, Inc. Since 1999, this organization has been empowering at-risk girls ages 13 to 18, helping them overcome behavioral and mental health challenges. Founder Wendy Gladney's personal journey inspired the mission to give girls hope and purpose through the power of forgiveness. Through their ambassador program, workshops, and annual conference, Forgiving for Living has touched over 3,000 young lives, providing mentoring, life skills, training, and tools for building self-esteem and confidence. You can make a difference. Visit forgivingforliving.org to donate, volunteer, become a mentor, or find help for a young girl in need. Forgiving for Living, Inc., building brighter futures for young girls. Visit forgivingforliving.org today. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Hi, everyone.
My name is Raquel Graham, and I have a big announcement to make. I have my own radio show. It debuts on KBLA 1580 on August 2nd, and it is called Entrepreneuring. I'm an inventor, a Shark Tank winner, entrepreneur for over a decade, and a proud mom of 2. I created this show because I know firsthand that entrepreneurship doesn't have just one look. Entrepreneuring celebrates what building a business really looks like. Big, medium, small, and micro. Some of us are running multi-million-dollar operations. Some of us are braiding hair in our kitchens. We're bakers, grant writers, laundromat owners, event promoters. Mark your calendars. Please tune in August 2nd, KBLA 1580 at 1 p.m. Pacific time. No question is too big or small. Let me know what you'd like for me to cover. See you then.
Let's get back to more of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire right now on KBLA Talk 1580.
We are continuing our conversation with Ashley Woodard Henderson, organizer and movement strategist. And so, Ashley, we are here 60 years after the passage of the Voting Rights Act. We're seeing that right and those rights and access to the ballot box, as well as our ability to select our own representation, all under assault, as well as, the erosion of democratic norms and democracy in general, the sort of resurgence in authoritarianism, which I think is important, to note. And I feel like I'm always trying to say this is that Black folks have known authoritarianism in this country before. I think this is not this is not something that suddenly it's like this has never happened in America before. Like, this is America, right? This is what we're seeing in terms of that sort of attempt at total power and control is what most of what America was like for most of its existence. And so when we think about that, and we think about the sort of as people are trying to organize, right, and think through like what do we need to be doing in this moment. And then just this historical, like the history, right, that you just took us through. What are the conversations that you're having right now with movement folks about, what are the lessons learned from the past that we need to carry forward in terms of the organizing work, the power building work that we need to be doing in this moment, and what strategies, right, do we need to be employing to sort of make sure that we not just again, get things back to where they were, right, but really push toward the vision of society that we want to see.
Yeah, I think this question is so important, and I will not waste it by feeling like one of the many Black women, Adrianne, you included, who warned people that this was coming in the first place. I won't waste this time by saying welcome to the world as it's always been, because you already made it very clear that authoritarianism not only has been the rule of law in the United States if you were Black or otherwise marginalized or targeted based on your identity or who you loved or what zip code you were born in, whatever. I won't waste time with that. And I won't waste time saying, like, there's got to be at least one Hamilton fan in the Black Pack that knows that Washington, D.C. is the South.
Yeah.
And as the South, so goes the nation is not an opinion. It's a fundamental fact. And that's, in fact, why folks are now feeling the heat of the potential consolidation of an authoritarian threat at the federal level. In many ways, we ignored it when it was happening to people in southern zip codes.
Right. Yes.
In part because, right, it's the largest Black population in the country. It's the highest concentration of queer and trans folks. It's the highest concentration of low-wage workers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I won't waste time with that, Adrianne. What I'll say is that something's dying. And I think part of what's happening is people's vision of this clean-cut democracy where voting actually got us the equal representation and support under the rule of law. More and more people are starting to see that that's actually not what's happening. And even if they only think it's happening because Trump is president, it's at least awakening them to the possibility that the American dream we've been sold is actually not possible in this season. And that is an opening. that is an opening. You know, I know folks have probably heard data being thrown around about needing 3.5% of the population sustainably, like, mobilized in the streets regularly to stop this consolidation. I'm sure people have heard that we need to be ungovernable, that we need to be non-compliant, and making sure that we're clogging up the gears of this administration. And there are infinite numbers of tactical interventions that allow us to do that. Now, for some of us, that's really exciting because it means it's going to be really accessible, right? Like, I can, from my home, if I am not able to be outside of my home, participate in a mass movement that is anti-authoritarian, right? And anti-fascist. And what's also real is that if you are someone who is new to this movement, looking for us to give you a concrete thing to do with a concrete how to do it, you might feel a little frustrated. I get that. But what I know is that more and more and more and more folks in this moment that are movement leaders have been racking their brain and in struggle with one another to give out a plural issue, multi-identity, multi-ideological, multi-tactical strategy for us to stop this authoritarian threat and live to fight about what the next thing should be, live to fight another day about those things. So what I would say really quickly is, like, the places that I'm going to for leadership are places that are not trying to be the status quo in this moment. So I'm supporting things like the No Kings Coalition. And if folks are interested in more information about that, they can go to NoKings.org/rise, nokings.org/rise to see what's next. We're training 1 million people to do non-compliance work. We have one more webinar in a 3-part series. I'm sure folks have seen the Rolling Stone article. There were 130,000 people touched on our first call. We maxed out before the first minute of the call with 20,000 people on the Zoom and several tens of thousands watching on YouTube and afterward.
Ashley, because these numbers are big and I think impressive. I'm going to ask you to just to describe a little bit more what the calls have been, because this is a way of organizing people into this moment, right, and to give folks the tools that they need, right, to be able to bring even more people in, right? So I'm going to ask you to just describe it a little bit more, and then also say again how people can join.
Absolutely. So the website to go to find out what you can do right now is nokings.org/rise, RISE. And part of what the calls have looked like, and all of them have been recorded, Adrian.
Okay.
So
that's great.
You can watch them. So basically what they've looked like is, again, hundreds of thousands of people, tens of thousands of people at a time, coming on a Zoom call or a YouTube channel together, and trainers from Freedom Trainers, myself, Daniel Hunter, Maria Stephan, coming together. Again, identity differences, ideological differences, organizing foundation differences, all sorts of stuff coming together across our differences to talk about what is non-compliance. Right. What does that mean? What does that word mean? Yeah. And where do we need to be doing it? How do we need to be doing it to actually slow down or stop the consolidation of authoritarian powers? Whether that's Trump or Congress or your city council or school board, we can do it anywhere. But the idea is that if we get trained up and we start figuring out the micro ways that we can participate in non-cooperation, that makes it easier for our neighbors to see that they're not alone in their disgust about this administration, and frankly about the ways that people that should be on our team are capitulating to it, the more we'll be able to rise together in mass to go after that one big bad guy in the tech oligarchy that is funding him. So essentially what it looks like in the first 2 webinars is us talking about the pillars of power that are making the administration's ability to consolidate so easy, right? It's businesses, it's education, it's faith communities, et cetera.
Right.
The military, right? Like all of these different pillars of power that are upholding this opportunity for this authoritarian threat to actually become concrete. And what can happen is folks like small business owners can put up signs in their windows that say no ICE, okay? There are things that we could be doing as alums of Ivy League schools, or maybe even just state schools, writing to our administrations and saying, like, look, y'all got to hold the line. Harvard, right? Columbia, UPenn. And Harvard's been doing it, but we know they're starting to capitulate. And part of that example is important for this moment too, because it's like, if we put on pressure and they held the line, and now Trump has increased his pressure, so they're thinking about capitulating, it means we need to increase our pressure again, right?
Mm-hmm.
Needed more. So there's there's boycotts, right? There's so many different ways that we can be participating in noncompliance, whether it's, the Tesla takedown, which is the easiest boycott I've ever participated in, or the Target boycott around the DEI intervention,
right?
Or the now tens of thousands of people who are saying they are willing to get rid of their T-Mobile contract if T-Mobile continues a contract with Starlink in September, because Elon is using the resources from that to buy elections, right? Or to attempt to buy elections. Right. So this next call that we're going to do, the third in the series, is going to be us actually getting really intentionally into a conversation about the calls to action coming from the organizations in the No Kings Coalition around how we might together be able to be non-compliant. And folks have already made commitments. Like, we'll probably by the end of the night, we'll have 1,000 commitments for community gatherings across the country where people are going to be talking about how to do non-compliance together.
Okay. So I'm going to ask you one more time, because I know that folks are listening. I'm looking at the chat on the live chat on YouTube, and I think I got Selena said she got it. Thank you. And I think she meant the website. So I'm going to
one more time.
I'm going to ask you to say the website one more time, where people can call and join the next. You can't even call it a workshop. I don't even know what to call it, because it's too big to be called a workshop.
It's so big. I mean, I've been calling it a webinar. It's kind of a training, and it feels a little like church,
right.
Where people can come and just like not be alone, right, and feel inspired by the time they leave with a concrete thing that they can do.
Something they can do.
So at least the best of church. Let's say it like that.
Website one more time. No Kings.
The website is www.nokings.org/rise, RISE.
Okay. And folks can go there. They can get their marching orders, join with other people in their community. So Ashley, I want to thank you so much for joining. I feel like we never get enough time to talk, so I'm gonna definitely try and get you back on to talk about this as it unfolds. And more events are happening in local communities. So thank you so much for coming on and talking to us about the work that you're doing and the work that we all need to be doing collectively. I want to thank everyone else for listening. Hopefully you got that website, and you'll go and join with other people as we attempt to organize around the country. This is the Black Pack, and I am here every Friday from 4 to 6 p.m. I will be here again next Friday, 4 to 6, and hope you all will join me.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. Black House Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffrey says the party is watching Texas Republicans' redistricting efforts and supports lawmakers opposing it.
It's an all-hands-on-deck moment, and all options should be on the table to protect the people of Texas.
He did not endorse a quorum break, which could lead to $500 daily fines and arrests.